Let's move on to a little bit of an autopsy here. Okay. And listen, the series isn't over. I think we're both, thinking that the series is over at this point. I still think that the Leafs might have a minor miracle in them. Again, the most Leaf thing that I could see happening is Toronto winning 3 games in a row and then losing game 7 on home ice. I think that's the most Leafy outcome possible. But let's look ahead. If the Leafs lose this series, which there's like a 92% chance that they lose the series, it's probably higher than that. What do you do with the core 4? Let me remind everyone, Auston Matthews and Mitch Marner, or Auston Matthews and William Nylander, I should say, are eligible to sign extensions on July 1st, 2023. That's coming up in a few months here. Mm-hmm. All right. Mitch Marner and John Tavares have an extra year on their contracts, 1 more year than Matthews and Nylander have. But if they get swept, if they lose in 5, if they lose in 6 or 7, whatever, you cannot run it back with the same core. So what's the play here? And again, we will really dig into this in the offseason, but what is the play here? What do you do with this core 4 at this point?
I think if there was ever time for, they've already had one. So if there was another time for a Leafs reality show, I'd want it to be over this summer if this team loses this series.
Absolutely.
I think of the Matthews discussion. Okay. So again, like you said, eligible to sign on July 1st. If I'm Dubas and Pridham, Wickenheiser, Spezza, Shanny in that room, whoever else is in there, Auston Matthews walks in with his agent. Auston, what are you looking for? Throws out a number. If he asks to be the highest paid player in the league, I will roll my eyes and say, there's the door, Auston.
Yeah, no chance at this point.
How things have changed. And I said a while back about apathy for Leafs fans, where people question, is that possible? Leafs fans, there's just so many of them and they're so crazy and so passionate. I'll ask you, Bruno, okay? And try your best to answer this question honestly. This team gets swept, okay? They put up another dud in game 4. You know what? Even if they do lose in 5 or 6 or whatever, this team just loses the series. We wake up on July 1 and we find out that Auston Matthews has signed an 8-year extension at, I'll call it a reasonable price. Not 15 million.
12 million?
Say between 12, but somewhere between 12 and 13 million. Okay. Are we even excited?
No, I don't think we're overly excited at all.
I'd be kind of okay.
Whatever. He's coming back. He's a great player. He's been a fantastic goal scorer since the second he walked into the league. But what I look at, Lepore, is what McDavid and Draisaitl are doing, specifically Draisaitl.
Such a slap in the face, eh? Such a slap in the... You know what, Oilers fans, Leafs and Oilers fans, for some reason, I mean, maybe it's the whole Matthews versus McDavid thing, I call it, but it's not a thing. I find sometimes we're at each other's throats. And it's not like, Montreal, Toronto, Ottawa, Toronto, where the geography is close, or Calgary, Edmonton. So I always kind of wondered why it's like that. But give it to us, Oilers fans. Bring it on, man. You guys have the green light to pour everything on Toronto Maple Leafs fans right now. The way your players went into game 2, again, not a must win, but a very important game. You don't want to go down 2-0. And Draisaitl just becomes the man of all men. McDavid scores that beautiful shorthanded goal. Look what other fan bases are allowed to point to. And we are the exact opposite.
Oilers fans at this point, they can say whatever they want. I think everyone in the hockey world, any hockey fan on the planet right now, is taking McDavid and Draisaitl over Matthews and Marner 100 times out of 100.
You take them over all 4 of them, I think, right now.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Those guys are driving the bus. Draisaitl just became the 3rd fastest player in history to reach 75 points in the playoffs. Yeah. The guy has 13 goals in 8 playoff games.
Bro, he's 6 back of the record.
It's absurd.
It's the second round.
If they get to the conference finals and maybe even the cup final, this dude might score 25 goals at this rate. Yeah. It's insane. So when you look at what those guys are doing, it just makes the situation even worse. And again, We're not saying that we expect Matthews and Marner to put up McDavid numbers. Now, listen, maybe the Draisaitl conversation at one point was closer with Matthews and Draisaitl and Marner and Draisaitl, but Draisaitl is just like, he's taken off in his Ferrari and he is not looking back at this point based on what that guy has done in the playoffs. So it's tough. And yeah, Lepore, like, I don't think any Leaf fan would be overly excited if Matthews signs an 8-year extension. Now, if he doesn't sign, then you have to look at trading him.
100%.
Because if he does not sign that extension, that would indicate to me, probably to the front office and everyone in that organization, that he doesn't want to be here. And then you're going to have to look at trading him. And it could be potentially the same thing with William Nylander. And listen, be very careful what you wish for, Leaf fans, because who has been the one guy that's been able to take over games, has looked the most explosive,
plays to his value,
who has arguably been the Leafs' best player in this series among the forwards? That's been William Nylander. So be very careful what you wish for, because you lose that guy, 40 goals. He's more explosive than Matthews and Marner. Now, I'm not saying he's as good as them, but in terms of like, when you got to beat that neutral zone trap and you need that speedster who can carry the puck in with confidence and make plays, you need guys like that in the playoffs. So be very careful what you wish for with William Nylander, because he could become the scapegoat for this whole thing. And quite frankly, I don't think he deserves it.
You think? I mean, I kind of thought we were done with that. I mean, there's always a Nylander debate. I kind of think that's gone by the wayside. I can't imagine
still don't
someone
like the guy, man.
What's that?
People still don't like Nylander.
Yeah, again, okay, like I always say, get your heads out of your asses. Get your heads out of your asses. I know his last name's Nylander and he has long blonde hair and he's silky smooth. It doesn't mean that he's not effective when it matters. Open your eyes, watch the game. How can you watch the last 2 games and point to that? No, I'll point to the kid from the GTA and the American Prodigy. That's who I'll point to. Oh, and the other kid from the GTA, Tavares, who had exceptional
$11 million captain,
who had exceptional status as like a 15-year-old and was this phenom coming up. Those are the guys I'll point to. No, it's the Swede getting it done. Unreal, man. But you mentioned the Matthews thing, and it affects the Nylander situation as well. I guess Nylander is a different discussion altogether, because Matthews is another animal in terms of sort of the brand he is and the salary, but the situation has changed. And again, we're assuming they're going to lose this series, but the situation has changed. I think before, the question was, does Auston Matthews want to be here? If he wants to be here, we'll give him the money. We'll make him the highest paid player in the league we're not going to go psychotic, but we'll pay him. And that's it. And what I guess to sum it all up, what I'm trying to say here is that it was up to him for the most part, where he was going to go into that room, say what he wanted. And as long as it made sense for the brass, they were going to do it. Okay. Now, no, Auston, like, it's different now, because you might go in that room and say, we just don't want you. So, or we want you at this. And it may shock the hell out of him. The entire life of this kid, he's been something special. Maybe no one's ever had to give him some bad news to his face or to tell him something negative to his face. Who knows how he'll react? But no. And again, like, they could lose this series and things could calm down. But even if someone said 13 million right now,
that's pushing it, man.
That's pushing. Jesus. And again, and that's the thing about these expectations. Me shitting on the players I did in the last pod. Again, a lot of people, there's another one person commented, well, there's a $10 million goalie trying to stop them. And that's a good point. That's fair. There's 2 teams here. But at the same time, when you make that kind of money, when you're making into that stratosphere among the highest paid players in the league, the expectations have to be high.
Yeah, you got to be able to overcome Bobrovsky playing out of his mind if you're making that kind of money.
If you're making the most money, you're supposed to be the best player when it matters. So how can, and I know the Draisaitl situation is different with when he signed and what he was when he signed, but how can you, like, again, I'm picturing this meeting. How could Matthews be like, yeah, like, I want 15 million. Draisaitl makes 8. You want like almost double what he makes? Or you want 2.5 million more than the guy that just had one of the best offensive seasons in the history of the league and is absolutely dominating the playoffs and is a threat every time he jumps over the boards? The discussion has changed. Nylander, again, I think it's different. because I think there's a negotiation there on both sides. But with Matthews, man, I think it's pretty firm now. Like, they're going to go in with something, and if he doesn't want it, see you later. And the other thing I will say, and it's come up, I mean, of course, everyone's always talking about the Leafs and, you know, their downfall, and people are going to love it. People are going to hate it. But I heard Chris Johnson say that he wouldn't be surprised if Matthews wanted a short deal, because kind of like the NBA thing, betting on yourself. If he comes to the table with that, no.
Yeah.
No,
like
you you're not
sign
winning
into like a 3-year deal or something like that.
Like, I'll put it this way, and especially because of COVID, the cap didn't go up as much as it would have if there was no COVID and all the financial stuff. So like, if he wants to like buy some time to sign another monster contract, no, you don't have that option now. And I'm not saying the Leafs would have entertained that before, but they would have at least listened to it. Okay, like, let's break this down. Now, no, Auston, you're losing this discussion. No. Sorry, man.
Honestly, Lepore, I would be stunned if any of them sign like a bridge deal at this point. Like, they're all entering their late 20s. I think they're all going to want the bag. And again, like, while Leon Draisaitl is just adding to his bankroll with every passing game, Mitch Marner and Auston Matthews, I mean, you're chopping off hundreds of thousands of dollars every game, millions of dollars for that matter, based on how they've been playing in this series. I don't know what you do at this point, because, listen, I don't want to go to extremes and say, like, you know, screw Auston Matthews, we don't need him. Like, the Leafs need Auston Matthews, all right? They need a number one centerman at the right price. They can't be signing the guy to a $13 or $14 million contract, because he doesn't deserve it at this point, just based on...
We're just talking business is what we're talking.
Yeah. Based on how he matches up with McKinnon, Draisaitl, McDavid. Like, you just can't. But it's tough, because obviously the ideal situation would be getting rid of John Tavares. This guy has no explosiveness. He can't take over playoff games at that salary. Listen, he's still a good player. He's a point per game player. I get it. All right? Like, he still shows flashes here and there, but you're seeing now, you get into the second round of the playoffs, there's 8 teams left. The next round, there's 4 teams left. Like, is anyone confident that John Tavares can take over a playoff game? Never mind a game. Can John Tavares take over a period? Can he take over a shift at that salary? He can't, with his lack of explosiveness.
Yeah. 5-on-5, Bruno, he had a brutal year.
Like, when John Tavares comes skating through the neutral zone and tries to dipsy doodle guys like in the offensive zone, like, you just know the play is going to die. Like, unless William Nylander or Mitch Marner or whoever he's playing with is setting that guy up on a silver platter, it is very difficult for number 91, the captain of the Toronto Maple Leafs, to create his own offense. It's extremely difficult. So that would be the ideal scenario, but no one's going to take Tavares at that contract. I mean, unless you dump him to some, you know, like Arizona or something like that. So that would be the ideal scenarios, that you get rid of John Tavares and his $11 million salary, but he's got a no movement clause. It's just not, it's not realistic. Yeah. So now you're in a position, it's like, oh my God, you got to trade one of Matthews, Marner, or Nylander, and you're going to lose any trade involving those guys. It's tough. One of my friends actually said, maybe the play is you just wait it out with Tavares, wait for his contract to expire in a couple of years, and then you kind of reevaluate after that. And
I've thought about
what you want to do.
I've thought about that. Like, that's kind of like the end point. Like, we laugh at ourselves every year of like, when do we make major changes? Kind of see that as the end point of what's happening with Tavares. That contract's up. And again, it starts with Matthews and Nylander. We'll see where it goes, but no one has answers right now.
Yeah.
Nobody. It's to me, I have zero predictions. Zero. Because there's so many curveballs being thrown. There's so many different situations that may occur. If someone asked me what this lineup's going to look like in 2 years, I'd be like, Jesus, I have no clue at all. Zero clue. Joseph Woll will be in nets.
Yeah, I think that's all we can be confident in at this point, is that Joseph Woll is going to be here, and probably Morgan Rielly.
Yeah, maybe Liljegren. Like,
who knows at this point? But yeah, like, let's wait for the series to end. All right, before we do a full autopsy, before we reevaluate everything that we've seen, you know, I don't even want to get into Kyle Dubas and Brendan Shanahan and Sheldon Keefe. Let's wait. Let's wait it out, see how the series plays out.